Hi, everyone. This is Sam Silverman, Managing Partner of EB-5AN. Thank you for taking time to join us for today's webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing our Kindred Resort at Keystone, a rural EB-5 loan project that recently received Form I-956 exemplar approval from USCIS. This project's well under construction, has all required EB-5 jobs already created for all the investors, and has nearly sold out with the condominiums as well. During today's webinar, if you have any questions, please use the chat box and we'll try and cover as many questions as we can at the end. And you can also feel free to reach out to us directly, and I'll share my email address here as well. If anyone has questions or wants to arrange a time to chat one-on-one, feel free to email me or message me on WhatsApp or text, and we can coordinate a time. Okay, skip through that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Sam Silverman, one of the two managing partners at EB-5AN. A little bit about my background and bio is there on the left-hand side, and joined today with my partner, Mike Schoenfeld. And I'll let Mike jump in and share a little bit about his background and experience before founding EB-5AN with me.
Hi, everyone. Appreciate you taking some time today to get the update on the Kindred Keystone project. So as you can see, my background's on the right. Both Sam and I worked at the Boston Consulting Group many years ago, and after that was in private equity before founding this company over 10 years ago with Sam. And what we've tried to do is bring more of that institutional approach to the EB-5 industry and add a layer of transparency. And that's helped us grow over the past 10 years to working with more than 2,000 investors and having a great track record with USCIS.
All right, perfect. And also, we have the pleasure of having Ahmed Khan with us today as well. Ahmed's a very experienced EB-5, former EB-5 immigration attorney who's worked on hundreds of cases over the years and worked for some of the top firms. And I'll let him jump in and introduce himself and share a little bit about his experience and what he's seeing in the market today with EB-5.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, as Sam mentioned, my name is Ahmed. I'm the vice president here at EB-5AN. And I also have a background both as a regional center executive and as an immigration attorney. I've helped investors from all over the world make decisions about where their investment is going to go for EB-5 purposes, and also advise on hundreds of source of funds scenarios and cases from around the world as well. So happy to be here today and talking about our Keystone project.
Great, thank you. So as one of the largest regional center operators in the US, we cover the entire country. This gives us the flexibility to identify the most compelling EB-5 projects, both rural and urban, around the country, since we're not restricted geographically. And over the years, we've worked with investors from around the world, from over 60 different countries. And this is a map showing where many of those investors have come from over the years. One of the things we're really focused on is transparency and educational information on our website. And also, we've been interviewed and served as a source for articles in many of the leading publications about EB-5 and also specifically rural EB-5 projects, which are very popular now under the new EB-5 rules that went into effect in March of 2022. So what is Form I-956F approval? This is a project level approval from USCIS, which basically says that the project, in this case, the Kindred Keystone Rural EB-5 project, has met the criteria set forth under the US EB-5 laws to qualify as an eligible EB-5 investment. When an investor submits their application under the rules today, there's two components. There's the project component, which in this case would be the Kindred Keystone project, and there's the personal component. Ahmed, do you want to walk us through what those two components are comprised of and how investors work with their attorney to get their application submitted, and what the 956F approval really means for investors looking for a project today?
Yeah, absolutely. So The 956F kind of serves as a form of deference for USCIS when they're looking at applications from investors who have filed into the same project. So what it allows USCIS to do is look at the project, by itself without worrying about the investors first, approving all aspects of the project from an immigration perspective. And then what it does is allows once it is approved, every investor that's filed within that same project now gets deference on the project portion of the application. So a lot of investors, they're first looking at the I-526E, they're wondering what it all comprises. There's two main aspects to it. One is, which project did you invest in, and is that project I-956F approved? And then the second piece is going to be the source and path of funds and immigration documentation that they will work with their attorney on to compile and submit. So you look at it, as a 50-50 kind of application, 50% of it being the project itself, whether or not it has 956F approval, and then the second half, the other 50% would be the investor's documentation pertaining to the source and path of funds and their personal biographical documents. So what a 956F approval does is it now opens the floodgates and allows all the investors within that project. USCIS only has to look at their source and path of funds documentation, and all the investors can kind of rest assured that their destiny is basically in their hands. As long as they're providing all the documents that are required for a source and path of funds, the project is already approved and is, they're 50% of the way there. They can expect an approval on their application as long as all the other requirements are met. So it's a really, really good way to lower the immigration risk when you're making an EB-5 application.
Exactly. And what I always like to, when I'm talking to investors, there's two types of risk that we try to mitigate as a company. One is immigration risk. We want to make sure every investor gets their green card and it becomes permanent. And number two is financial risk, making sure our investors get their money back at the end of the investment period. So on the first point of immigration risk, with this project, we now have a pre-approval from the government. So they've approved our structure, they've approved our job creation methodology, they've approved the project, which is already halfway built. So the investor knows the project is approved. On top of that, with this specific deal, we've already also created enough job creation for every EB-5 investor to have 10 jobs allocated to them. These buildings are over halfway done. So what that does is that when an investor comes in today, they know as long as my source of funds is clean and that gets approved, the project's already approved and I already have the jobs allocated to me. So this really is going to the furthest end of mitigating immigration risk, where there's no better way in a project to mitigate all the immigration risk as much as possible than this. So it really just comes down to source of funds at that point.
Yep, exactly. So looking at the Form I-956F, so we've been one of the most active companies in the EB-5 space. In fact, I think we've gotten more 956F approvals than any other regional center in this space. Since the RIA, we've gotten 7 956F approvals, and you can see here over time that these applications have continued to decrease in terms of processing time. So the most recent one, which we actually got a few days ago, was approved in just 4.6 months, whereas the first one was almost a year and a half. And when you look at the average time it takes for the government to process this type of application, you'll see it's about 12.8 months. But looking at the most recent 2023 filings, you'll see that our approvals are significantly less than the 12.8, or about 7.3 months. So about 5.5 months faster than average. And so that's really important to understand, that our projects have sailed through without a single question. Sometimes the government issues these requests called a request for evidence, where they'll send a letter, ask for additional information, proof that the project is actually credible, is going to happen, proof of permits, proof of a loan in place, things like that. None of our projects have received any of those questions, and so that's allowed us to get these approvals as quickly as possible. So that's kind of a quick overview on the actual form and how that form kind of fits into the immigration process for investors. Mike, do you want to give us an overview of the project itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So this project is a premier rural deal. It's located at the Keystone Ski Resort, which is the closest major ski resort to Denver in terms of driving distance. It's also one of the most popular ski resorts in the country. So the project site is located right next to the main gondola. So where the lift is, this is a ski in, ski out property, the best piece of real estate in the entire ski resort. It's been sitting waiting for development. And at this point, the deal's progressed extremely far. So they've already pre-sold over 70% of the 95 condominium units with 30% non-refundable deposits down. It's going to be a 107-room hotel that's actually managed by Vail Resorts themselves under their Rock Resorts brand. And it's going to have a lot of commercial space right next to the main ski lift. So at this point, with the I-956F approved, all of the jobs already created, all of the capital in place for this deal and construction going very far along, it makes it one of the most compelling rural deals in the market.
Got it. And let's take a look at geographically. So you can see here that the project is located just west of Denver, and it's the closest ski resort to Denver, which makes it very attractive for local residents in Denver who want to go skiing for the weekend. This is the easiest project to visit. This is a quick map kind of showing the layout of the resort. They have night skiing. They just opened up a new chairlift this past season. And when we look at the overall footprint of the project, we can see there's two different towers, east and west, which are the condominiums, and then the hotel and amenities areas right there in the middle, and then the primary ski gondola there on the left, River Run Gondola. This is a recent construction photo from a few weeks ago, and you can see all three towers. Vertical construction is very far advanced, and the roofs are already on the first two buildings there. This is a quick overview of the timing. You can see, the project's very far advanced in terms of the vertical construction of all three, and some prior construction photos in different seasons, just showing the progress over time. There's a total of 95 condominiums. 70 are sold so far, with 25 remaining, which are being held back largely. The developer is waiting until closer to completion when they'll be able to obtain an even higher price for the remaining units. And we talked about job creation earlier. There's 100 EB-5 investors planned for the project, which means we need 1,000 jobs. 100 investors, 10 jobs each gives us the 1,000. And as of February, we have almost 1,300 jobs already created. Jobs are created by construction expenditure. So as the developer spends funds on concrete, steel, windows, wood, building materials, we automatically get a certain number of jobs. And because construction is so far advanced and millions of dollars have already been spent, we already have more than enough jobs for every investor to successfully complete the immigration process. This is a quick overview.
Sam, just on that point real quick, we get a lot of questions from investors asking, like, how is it possible that the jobs can already be created if my money is still with me? I haven't even put my money into the project. Well, for immigration purposes, especially in EB-5, the way it generally works is, I think the best way to understand it is all jobs in a project that are created are put into a pot. And basically, if you're an investor, whether you're coming in before those jobs are created, whether you're coming in after, as long as your money is being expended into that project and creating that nexus, you get to pull jobs from that same pot, whether you came in after or whether you came in before. As long as your money is in the same project, you get the benefit of those jobs that were created prior to you investing. So it's a really big advantage to be able to get that. You use those jobs that are already created and really reduce immigration risk, like Mike had mentioned earlier.
All right, so shifting to the funding of the project total cost is a little bit over $300 million. What makes this deal pretty unique is that all the funding is already in place, and EB-5 capital is just reducing the amount of the senior loan. And so even if no EB-5 came into the project at all, there's already enough money committed to complete the construction. EB-5 is just coming in at slightly more favorable terms, slightly lower cost for the developer, and so it makes it financially attractive to use EB-5 capital and use less capital from the bank loan that's already been approved. The other thing that's happening here is that as the building gets completed, and again, there's a condominium component and there's a hotel component, we expect that proceeds, revenue from the sale of condominiums when the building is completed will be used to pay down the existing senior loan from the bank and also reduce capital that's been loaned in from CPACE, the U.S. Department of Energy tax financing program. And so after the condominiums are closed, then we expect the EB-5 loan to become the senior loan on the project and remain on the hotel as it continues to operate. And so this combination of both condominiums and hotels, condominiums and a hotel, gives us unique flexibility so that since we know we already have 70% of the condos sold, we know that there's a very high likelihood that the sales from those closings will give us the revenue required to pay down the other category of debt on the project, which will allow EB-5 to be senior. And I'll let Mike jump in and share a little bit about why this really makes for a compelling investment for EB-5.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of different ways that project sponsors kind of discuss their projects. Sometimes projects will tell you that they are the senior debt, but the project has the ability to add in other capital ahead of them in the future. We actually take the opposite approach, where right now, technically, we are subordinate mezzanine debt on this project. We are below the Romsman loan, but we now have enough condominium sales proceeds committed that once the buildings are done and it's closed, that we shift into the senior position with a recorded mortgage. So this EB-5 loan will become a senior recorded mortgage once the condominium buildings are finished and the closings occur. And as I mentioned, they do have 30% non-refundable deposits on these condominiums. So in the event that buyers chose not to close, they get to keep 30% of the money and resell the condos, and they could sell them at 70 cents on the dollar and still be made whole. So it makes it where once you get this critical mass of pre-sales in a condominium project, you've crossed that hurdle of having a successful deal. So just overall, we're really excited to have the deal where we're able to raise at this phase of the construction where the buildings are over halfway done. And we know that we will end up with a senior mortgage on an operating hotel and all the other assets on site. And with that and the pre-approval from the government and the rural designation, it really makes this quite a unique project.
And one of the things we mentioned a little bit earlier is just the unique location of the project. Given its close proximity to Denver, it's the closest resort. It's actually the fourth most visited resort in the United States. And it is operated by Vail Resorts. They're a public company. And Vail is actually also, through their subsidiary, Rock Resorts, is the company that's going to be managing the operations of the hotel, which really makes it a unique asset because Vail has a huge database of clients, and they'll be able to very easily drive traffic from people buying lift tickets and skiing at the resort to stay in the hotel, given its proximity to the resort. And again, as Mike described earlier, we're primarily focused on evaluating the immigration safety and the financial safety in any of our EB-5 projects. And so on the immigration side, because we have the exemplar approval and the project is fully capitalized, not dependent on EB-5, and we already have all the jobs, you pretty much can't get any better than that from an immigration perspective. So that's best in class. And on the financial side, we are going to become senior following condominium closing. So that pretty much eliminates the possibility of EB-5 funds getting wiped out because we'll be senior on an asset that has real value, a brand new hotel immediately adjacent to the Vail Keystone Mountain. And we also have obviously the 526C approval refund guarantee and other terms that give us a safe position for our investors. All right. And just to conclude, currently we have 4 different projects available. One of them obviously is our Kindred resort at Keystone. That's the rural project we just discussed. We have another project that's also rural, which is our Twin Lakes, Georgia project. That's a different type of project that's single family homes outside of Atlanta. Again, jobs already in place, hundreds of homes sold, slightly different business strategy, more of a retiree, 55 and up active adult community. And then for those investors who are less sensitive to getting the green card as fast as possible and who are willing to wait a little bit longer, we have 2 different urban TEA offerings, both on the same project in South Florida. Boynton Beach is an apartment building that's also targeting the active adult market segment. And we have both an equity option with a higher preferred return there and a traditional debt option as well in the same project. Ahmed, do you want to share a little bit about your experience, what you're seeing in the market today in terms of investors and what their preferences are based on?
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of different investors coming to the market and looking at the EB-5 projects. Typically, you know, for folks who are coming from India and China, countries that are traditionally backlogged, and we've seen the high number of applications going in since the RIA, they're very interested in rural deals to take advantage not only of the priority processing and getting the green card, you know, much faster than we're seeing in the urban TEA category, but also to avoid any kind of backlog because of the double the amount of space that's available in that set aside category. So, you know, we've obviously had a lot of success with the Twin Lakes, Georgia project, but Kindred, Keystone's also taken, it's generated a lot of interest. And with the 956F approval, I would imagine the amount of calls we've gotten just since the approval that it'll be full soon as well. So, yeah, I think our rural deals have done really, really well. For investors who are not from traditionally backlog countries or maybe who, you know, their only priority is to kind of get the green card, you know, for future or just to kind of secure their future, and they're in a very comfortable place right now and they'd like to still adjust, our urban TEA option, the Boynton Beach project, is a great option because it does offer slightly better financial terms, and also it gives the opportunity to kind of choose between for a more seasoned investor who's a little bit more familiar with projects like these, to choose an equity option and get a little bit higher return, or they still have the option with a secured loan with a big, you know, A+ developer like Coulter to lock in their investment and kind of do the best of both worlds, get the best bang for your buck, if you will. So yeah, I think all 4 are great options, and each one kind of hits on different priorities. So depending on what investors are looking for and what they'd like to prioritize, one of these options should definitely fit.
Perfect. Thanks, Ahmed. And yeah, we really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today to get this exciting update on Keystone with a 956F approval and all jobs created. So we don't want to take up too much of everyone's time, but yeah, once again, just thank you for joining. Please reach out to us with any questions that you have, and look forward to having you join one of our webinars again soon. Thank you.